Welcome once again to The Upgrade. My name is Gary Muttley, joined as always by Len Carmichael.
From Landline Studios.
And this is part 2 of our discussion with Malone Ranalli from Billy Club Sandwich.
I knew one thing, is that if I was going to live, I didn't want it to be this way anymore. I got on a laptop at my uncle's house and I started looking up detox centers. And I didn't know what else to do, but I knew that an IOP wasn't going to work, and I knew that I was going to have to go away for a long time. And I called my mother, and she was at school. She's a teacher. And she answered the phone. I can only imagine what she was thinking when the phone rang in the middle of the morning and she was in a class. But I said, hey, I need you to take me to a detox. And she said, I'll come get you right now. And I went outside and I smoked a joint that was like the size of this cup. And with my uncle, and my mother came, and I went to Sound Shore Medical to the 7th floor, the detox and mental illness unit. And that was the beginning of my life changing. I was sitting in the detox, and I remember there was a dude with a he was this little Puerto Rican dude, and he had a serious hair lip, and he stuff like this. And he was telling me stories. I tell you when the dope was good. This dope is shit nowadays. And he was telling me story about like black tar heroin that he scored in 1980. And it's March 19th of 2012. And I said, what the fuck am I doing here? And I got a shot of methadone. And I got to tell you this story. This is a funny anecdote of the whole thing, is that I'm like in this detox unit, and I'm surrounded by crazy ass motherfuckers because it's also the mental health unit. And I'm like, I gotta read a book or something. Like I'm on methadone and what have you, and I go and I'm looking for a book. Now they got this bookshelf, it's huge, and it's like the books are too deep, so like you could pull out a book and there's books behind it. And I'm pulling books out. Now every fucking goddamn book in that motherfucker was a Danielle Steele novel. because the nurses would donate them, right? And I'm like, I don't want to read this shit, you know what I'm saying?
Not trying to jerk off in here.
Yeah, well, I can't, like, jerking off, I can't, like, I couldn't even feel my dick on that 60 shot of methadone. So I pull out a book, and this pamphlet like flutters down to the ground. So I'm like, what the hell is this shit, you know? So like I pick it up, and like I look, and it's this like really beautiful bucolic picture of like this farm, and it says High Watch Recovery. And I was like, wow, that looks really nice, you know? And I open it up, and like, you know, like when you watch Peanuts, like the like the teacher's voice. Okay, so that, like, I'm reading, and all that's coming out is and then I get to this little part that says made to order breakfast, and I was like, I gotta go here. I have to go here, right? So now, look, I know a lot of people in recovery. I've been in recovery a long ass time, right? I'm coming up on 9 years. And I have to laugh because I almost died so many fucking times, right? So when I tell my story or I get into it or about my recovery, like I have to laugh, and like there's shit that's funny. There's shit that happened that was funny. And here I am in this place where I feel like if I don't change, I'm going to end up like that dude telling stories about the best dope in 1980. So I sprint down the hallway to my caseworker's office. Now I'm on methadone, so I was probably crawling. But like, hey, it felt like I was sprinting. So I get down there, and this Jamaican lady was my caseworker. Her name was Tina. I never forget her. I only knew her for a week, and she saved my life. One of the people that helped save my life. And I go over there, and I was like, I must have looked insane because I was like, what is this place? And she looks at me and she opens up my jacket and she's like, all right. And she's going through my file. And she's like, you've never been to a detox before? I'm like, no. She's like, you never been to rehab before? I'm like, no. And she's like, this might work for you. This place might work. Now, the place that I went to rehab was a dual diagnosis facility, which means that it treats the physical parts of addiction to the drug, but you also are like in intensive therapy. You're in group therapy, and it's a therapeutic. It's not like a TC, which is like a therapeutic community, which is horrendous. You don't ever, hey, all you drug addicts out there, don't ever go to a TC. Okay, gonna fuck you up. But it's a dual diagnosis facility, and it's where it was started by the guy who wrote Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
All right, so it started in 1939. And it was a farm, and it was owned by a sister who he said, hey, I need a farm where these alcoholics can go dry out. And she said, I got a place.
When you say a sister, are you talking about a nun, or are you his actual sister?
No, a nun.
Okay.
All right. And I wound up there. And that's when those guys got a phone call from my brother or my mother.
Somebody called Glenn. I don't remember who.
And they were like, yo, this dude relapsed. He was even worse than he ever was. And now he's back in rehab.
Now, keep in mind, all this time we're thinking that he's good. He's on the Suboxone. And he's
thought everything was on the
He's trying to clean up. But there were, because I didn't, like, I hung out with him a few times and had lunch, but I know Glenn had hung out with him a couple other times, and there were signs that something was up, and I was told about that. So, there was definite suspicion. I don't remember the full details at this point, but there were definitely concerns. So it wasn't a total surprise.
I mean, in some aspect, I feel like you were just waiting for the other shoe to drop, Muttley.
I mean, I at that point was dealing with a bunch of other shit because by that time I had split with the mother of my kids and had left that job and was working temporarily. Like, I had a bunch of other shit rolling. My life was really complicated at that point. So I wasn't really even thinking about shoes dropping. Like I said, when we stopped, we just kind of left it as like,
so what year was
see
that?
If the dude gets together and see what happens.
What year are we talking about right now?
I entered detox on March 19th of 2012. My sobriety date is March 24th, 2012, because from March 19th to March 23rd, I was on methadone.
Okay.
March 24th was my first day completely drug-free.
Okay. So the reason why I knew that something was up between, not even necessarily between the band and anything, but me and Malone would always talk food.
Always. Yeah, always.
So we would text back and forth about cooking things, etc. And then he'd go radio silent. And I'm like, where the fuck is this motherfucker? And then you'd be back on and we'd be talking again and then gone. And then around 2010, it was just like, whoop.
Yeah.
Then, like, we weren't talking at all for a while. And it that's when I started asking Muttley. I'm like, yo, what's up with Malone? And he wasn't as open as it would be now.
Well, we made a point because we didn't know where this was going to go. We weren't sure, the dude could clean up and we'd be back to being a band in a year. Maybe not. We didn't want to burn the bridge. We didn't want to torch the house. Mm-hmm. So when things stopped, we made a pact amongst ourselves that we were just going to kind of keep it low because we really didn't know where it was going to go. We had only just learned about how bad this drug problem was. And we were giving him his time to see. There wasn't beef. We had said we were going to support him, but then as the story goes on, things started to get a little weird. My recollection, and I could be totally wrong, is that I think the last time I spoke to him was, you said that was March of 2012?
Yeah.
So I think the last time I spoke to you was on the phone, and I think it was Christmas Eve right before that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was Christmas Eve of 2011 that I had spoken to him, and that I didn't hear from him again for a very long time.
Until September.
Until the Gregg show.
Yeah.
That was the next time.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
So that's March through 2012. So you got your first day clean, and it's March 24th, which happens to be my mother's birthday.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's where March 19th is where my journey began. March 24th. So when I ran in, that was on my first day of rehab where I found that pamphlet.
Right.
And I went in and I talked to Tina, and she put me on the phone with Rob, the guy who does intake. And he didn't have an open bed, but he would have one on Saturday, which was when I was leaving when I was leaving detox. And the rule for high watches is that you can't, like, you have to leave detox and go directly to rehab. You can't
go home and maybe relapse before you go there.
Right.
They want you clean when you get there.
And also, they don't want you to bring shit in there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
So I got to High Watch on March 24th. Bro, you know how like we always used to talk about food?
Right.
So Saturdays at High Watch was family day.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have visitors on Saturday and Sunday. Sunday night, they did a prime rib dinner.
Oh, so good.
Bro, but not like a diner prime rib dinner, like
high end.
Yeah. And like, so I was there and I hadn't eaten. So we used to have a joke in detox that no fresh bread made it past the 6th floor. Cause like on the 7th floor, it was just had stale bread and fucking shitty food. And I couldn't eat none of that shit. The only thing I ate when I was there was Rice Krispies and peanut butter and jelly on toast.
Right.
But the bread was stale. So by that time, I was on methadone a long while, 5 days or whatever, and I had built up an appetite again. And I got my intake was at like, I don't know, like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Yo, that was funny. My boy sent me my photo, bro. My intake photo, because I'm still friends with everybody that I was there that works there. So anyway, that night, the guys that I'm like in my dorm are like, yo, you're not going to believe the spread we have tonight, bro. And that night I had mashed potatoes and gravy, and I had a prime rib with horseradish, like a plate like this, bro. Dinner rolls, and I was like, I made the right fucking choice in this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? And but no, so now it was expensive. I didn't have insurance. They didn't take insurance. My grandmother and my mother pooled money out of pocket to pay for me to go there. I think it was like $7,000.
Okay.
And that was for 21 days, $7,000, right? And I mean, they were like, it was like a wing and a prayer, like.
Yeah, but that's what your mother does. When she believes you that it's time to do it, she will find the way to make it happen. If I was having the problems and my mom had to step in, she would do the same thing. Because when you have a parent that really cares about you, and you say to them, hey, I'm ready, they're going to bend over backwards to help you follow through.
Yeah. And so now that's for 21 days. So I was coming up on my 21 days, and I called my mother. I was like, yo, I can't leave here. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, Ma, I can't go home. I'm not ready. Like, this is not going to work. So she paid for like 2 more weeks.
Okay.
So I was going to be there for 5 weeks total. And I was coming up on my 5 weeks, and I was deathly afraid to walk out of there, man. I would have died. I would have relapsed. I wasn't ready. I didn't learn enough. I had barely gotten past the physical addiction at that point. For the first 10 days, I didn't sleep.
Okay.
The 10th night, the doctor gave me Seroquel.
Okay.
And I went to sleep finally. And then they kept me on Seroquel for a while. And so I was coming up on my 5 weeks, and I wasn't going to be able to stay because it was going to be way too much money. And I applied for something that's called extended guest privileges. And so you get to stay there for 90 days after, not like including the first 5 weeks, 90 days after. And you get to work on your program, and you don't have to pay anything, but you have to work.
Right.
And some things happened while I was in rehab. So right then and there, I applied, and it took like a week maybe, and my grandmother passed away while I was in rehab. In the morning that I got the news that she passed away, I got the extended guest spot.
Right.
And I got to work there, and they asked me, I took over a dorm. I became a dorm monitor, and I worked in the kitchen. It was perfect for me.
Right.
Right? I worked, on the Saturday nights, I was the one serving the prime rib.
Okay.
And I stayed there until August. So I was there from March until August. I had a really bad time with some things. My grandmother died, and then I was at... so the way that it worked was, I didn't have access to a telephone. I had to get like a phone card, and I could call people, but like nobody could call me.
Okay.
And there was a board, like a cork board, and a chalkboard, or like a cork board, like a cork board. Mm-hmm. And I went, and there would be like messages. So it'd have your name, and you flip it over, and you see who called you. And I went, and it said extended guest Malone on this yellow piece of paper, and I flipped it, and it said call Rob, and then in parentheses it said EGH. And I knew something was wrong. And that's when I found out that Greg died. And it was almost too much for me to handle. And I wanted to leave. I just didn't want to be there. And I wanted to be with my friends. And I said, I better call Rob. So I called Rob. And Rob told me, he said, don't come home.
Stay. You got to stay.
He said, you got to stay there. He goes, because we only want you to get better. And I wrestled with it for a while. It was hard. I'm not going to say it wasn't hard. It was very, very hard. But I stayed. And I made it through that. And I did a lot of work there. I was in therapy every day. And
so did the therapy help you figure out what was deep down troubling you? And yeah. I don't need you to tell me what it is, because that's not what I'm trying to ask about. But I'm asking, did it help you find the problem?
Yes. And I'll say this. The therapy... So 2 things happened with the therapy. 1, the therapy wouldn't have worked if I didn't identify with the therapist. Okay. And the therapist that I happen to get, or maybe I view it as some cosmic thing, but maybe they know what they're doing more than I give them credit for. But my therapist was an old Italian lady from the Bronx.
Okay.
And she was mad cool. And the therapy didn't work for the first month and a half, maybe, because I didn't tell her the truth. But once I made a decision.
Well, you had to take your guard down.
Well, and the decision that I had made was this. I said that if I hold anything back, that's what I'm going to relapse over. So I said, I better leave everything here. That's my best chance. I don't know if that's going to work, but I have to become the most vulnerable that I've ever been and say everything that's ever happened to me, whether I'm comfortable with it or not.
Right.
And once I did that, my life changed.
You had to just get it out.
Yeah. And it did. It did help.
Pulling you down.
It did help, yeah. And I've never probably told anyone those things before or since then. And kind of the cool thing about that is that you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to. What you have to do is you have to share it with another person, so you're not the only person that carries that burden. You know, because like maybe I can't, but we can. You know.
Right.
And I don't kind of try to like sound like a bunch of cliches or whatever, but like, you know, for me it worked, but I did the work.
Well, it's much harder to balance something on one pole than it is on two.
Exactly. But that was just the beginning of my journey, you know.
Right.
And
where are we?
All right, so we are about, you know, so we're basically 8 years ago.
Right.
Okay. And there was a lot of work. So I learned a lot there, and that place saved my life, and the people that worked there saved my life. However, I was very far from knowing everything that I needed to know. And I'll say that to say this. I showed up in Brooklyn at the Little Gregg benefit, and I shouldn't have been there.
Well,
you weren't ready?
Let's back up a little bit. When all of this was going on, speaking for Martin and Glenn and myself, contact stopped completely. None of us heard from him. Although, did you see Glenn at your grandmother's funeral or your grandfather's funeral?
That was much later.
Glenn
wasn't at. I only made it to. So I got a day pass to leave rehab to go to my grandmother's funeral with an escort, but she drove me there, stayed with me the entire time, ate with me and the family, and then drove me back that day. Glenn was at the wake.
Okay.
And so was like Catalina and like a bunch of other people.
But did you interact with Glenn at all?
I did, but that was much later.
That was later? Okay.
That was like in 2014.
Okay. Because I remember there was a meeting with Glenn at one point because we had no contact.
There was no contact. Yeah, I had no contact.
Because what happened was, going back, we had the meeting back in 2010. He asked for us to support him, and we said, yes, we got you. And then, as I mentioned before, when I was working in Hartsdale, we had lunch a few times. We talked out a bunch of stuff. But then we found out he was fucking up. And after that, as I mentioned, my recollection is the last conversation I had with him was a phone conversation Christmas Eve, 2011. We had no contact after that. And it had gotten to the point where we were pretty frustrated about it because he had asked for our support. We were there supporting him, and then he just dipped out on us.
But I think in his in Malone's defense, he probably needed to do it.
Right.
He had to just put his head down and take care of his shit.
What was frustrating us was that it seemed like he was talking to everybody else except us.
Well,
because
sometimes you want to talk to the people that are not necessarily the closest ones.
Right.
And that's where your vulnerability lays.
And that was one thing.
Am I talking out of turn, Malone?
No, I'll say this, though. I told you guys 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago that I'm a fucking hard-headed dude. And I was deeply ashamed, but I was also scared. These guys were my family, and I knew that I had let them down. And now, a hard part was, and I'm not saying they owed me anything because they owed me nothing, but I was talking to other people. Other people were contacting me. I wasn't really necessarily reaching out to people. I mean, I can remember when Murphy reached out to me and called me a crackhead and basically berated me. And then we started talking. Or Lil Nando called me and or texted me, and then we started talking. And I was too afraid and ashamed to reach out to them, and that's my problem. That was my problem. And in a series of missteps, I didn't do anything right when I got out of rehab either. I'll take full responsibility for that. I didn't man up, Len.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said I shouldn't have had no business being there, because I wasn't ready in my sobriety to deal with the complexities of those situations. Okay. Of the interpersonal relationships that I fucked up. And they had every right to be like, what the fuck? Why is this guy talking to other people and not us? Because I fucked up again.
Well, keep in mind, as I said before, we never buried the dude in talking to other people.
Mm-hmm.
No.
But our frustration was starting to show because you had people like, yo, Malone's doing good. And we just got to the point where we were like, oh, he is?
That me and you had that conversation.
Right.
Because me and Malone had re-kicked off our food conversations. And I was talking to you, and I was like, I was talking to Malone the other day. And you were like, oh, well, that's nice because I haven't heard from him. And I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
Right.
So,
and
I get it.
And our frustration was starting to show, and then I heard from two people, one in California and one in London, saying, yo, I heard Malone's going to the Gregg show. And I'm like, what? And talking amongst ourselves and with certain members of our inner circle, a few people were like, nah, I don't think he would do that, not without reaching out to you guys first. And we're like, okay, we'll see what happens. Now, Billy Club was going to play, but that was a secret. Only the people that booked the show and, and the members of the band, because we ended up doing it. I played guitar. Matt Stevens came back to play bass. And yeah, some people had suspicions, but nobody. Part of the reason we kept it a secret was because we didn't know if it was going to happen, because Matt had been kicked out of the band. We decided to work with Matt. We had a couple of practices, and it wasn't until the last practice that we felt like we could actually do the damn thing. And we were only doing 3 songs anyway.
I think I had offered to fill in.
Probably.
I was like, yo, if you guys ever need me, let me know.
Yeah. There were a few people that had, and we wanted to keep it internal
Yep, I got you.
Because like John Franco could have played bass, but it was cool because it's like, okay, the old bass player's coming back to do the one show.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody recognized him because he used to have long hair and then he shaved his head. But that was just a funny side thing.
Well, and I was laughing earlier when you said that because you were like, yeah, well, Billy Club was going to play. And like, it's funny to me to look back at it in hindsight because like they were very, very, very upset with me and not reaching out to them like, yo, I'm coming to this show. But then afterwards, I was like, these motherfuckers played and they didn't even tell me they were going to play. Right? Like I had any ground to stand on, but like, you know, like I said, I was still not ready. And what I mean by that is that you should be at least on the 9th step before you go trying to make amends to anybody.
Okay.
Because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And, you know, they're the steps for a reason because you got to hit the ones before to know what you're doing on the next one up, you know? And I was not. I had just done a 4th and 5th step. But because of the fact that I was not at Greg's wake or funeral, I felt that I had to go to the show. Again, in hindsight, it was a poor decision on my behalf. And also, it put me in even worse standing with Billy Club.
Well, we at different points had tried to reach out, never got anything back at all. And then there were certain issues with things he was saying to certain people that kind of made us feel a little weird. And it was just a very tense, weird situation. And then all of a sudden, this dude just shows up. And like I said, some people were like, yeah, I don't think he would do that because that would be really bad form. That would like, and then there he is. And it just put us all on the spot because things were not cool. Because the other thing, too, is that from things that we had been hearing, he kind of made it sound like we stopped talking to him, went to us.
It was the other way around.
He just dropped out. He stopped talking to us, which is where the tension comes from. Because it's one thing if, listen, you're doing your steps, like, that's fine. But, like, he was saying stuff that put it on us, and we didn't appreciate that. And that was where the tension came from. So we played. We did our thing. The video's on YouTube. It worked out well. And afterwards, I approached Malone and was like, yo, can we talk for a second? And there were people that witnessed this conversation and thought that we might end up throwing hands, which was never my intention anyway. But I guess when you get two big fucking gorillas talking sternly to each other, people are going to think that they're going to throw hands. So I told him, I was like, yo, I don't think you should be here right now. Like, I think it's very disrespectful. You're putting us all in a weird spot because, like, what are we going to do? Step to you at Greg's show? Like, it put us in a weird space. And I felt that more than anybody because, as we've explained over the past couple of hours, the tension more than anything was between the two of us. So it was just very weird. And I know other people were trying to play peacemaker, and I appreciate that, but it just felt very disrespectful to us, and it put us in a very weird position, made weirder by the fact that here I am hearing it from people in other parts of the world. So, like Malone said, it didn't really help, bottom line.
And
so y'all had a conversation.
Well,
was it a long conversation or was it pretty short?
It was pretty short, and it was really
10 minutes at most.
Yeah, it was really me just saying that I thought it was really bad form for him to even be there. I thought it was very disrespectful to put us in that weird spot that even a heads up would have been nice. Like, you don't have to call me and have a whole conversation, but just give us a heads up and say, yo, I was hoping to come by the show and at least get our blessing on it. Like, okay, we got problems. We know we got problems. We can put them aside for a day, but at least give me that courtesy of giving me that heads up.
Right.
Give us that courtesy.
And like a side note to this is that Martin never stopped talking to me.
That's true, and honestly, that was another thing that got me and Glenn kind of tight, because it's like, okay, like, what did we do?
Well, Muttley, you and I did not, like, I didn't know if you and I were ever going to be able to be on speaking terms again.
Well, but when I was in Hartsdale and you and I had lunch a few times and we sat in the park and talked a bunch of shit out, like, I thought we were going somewhere. Like, I thought we were trying to solve that issue. That's why when it dropped out, it was just like,
yeah,
okay.
But Muttley, we had that talk and I was on Suboxone, and then that fell off the rails because I started snorting bundles of heroin every day.
Right. But I didn't know.
I know.
Of that.
No, I know. But like, so like Martin never stopped talking to me, and I didn't have the balls to talk to. I had known Glenn since I was 14,
right?
And I didn't have the balls to approach him and Muttley, and I didn't also approach Martin. Martin would call me and like hound me and be like, "Yo, you got to talk to Glenn. You got to talk to Muttley." And I'd be like, I'm not ready. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And I didn't. I did not know what to do. Now, I talked to Martin at the Gregg benefit, and I talked to Muttley. I did not talk to Glenn. I called Glenn 2 or 3 days later from the room in my sober house, and then me and Glenn got into it a bit, and it didn't go well, and then I never reached out again.
I can't imagine a conversation with Glenn not going well.
You don't know Glenn so great then.
No, that's pure sarcasm.
Yeah. So it didn't. It started out like not great, and it got worse, and then we agreed to talk again, and I never reached out to any of them again.
How long did it take?
It took.
Do you remember the conversation we had about it? Sorry to cut you off, but you guys were still on the outs, and we got to talking about food, and I asked you, I was like, so when are we getting a new Billy Club set? When are you coming back? And you were like, I don't know. I almost vividly remember this conversation. I'm like, yo, just man up and talk to them. They're grown men. You're a grown man. You can do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it took after that, but I remember having that conversation with you.
I could probably find it in the Facebook Messenger app.
It's probably in there.
It's probably in there. But like, I remember having a conversation with you. And to be fair, Len, you weren't the only one who said that.
Oh, I'm sure. I couldn't have been the only one that said that.
I mean, I know there were a bunch of those conversations because some of those people have straight up, even at the time, came to me and told me about those conversations. In all fairness, Len was not a snitch. He didn't mention it.
But, you know, the other part of that, too, is that not only was I not ready to do that, but I was not ready to jump back into anything that had to do with, like, I went to that show and it was a mistake because I wasn't ready to deal with anything having to do with hardcore bands, my old friends, my old brothers, my band. I wasn't, there was a lot of things that I had to do.
Well, I didn't say it at the time, but I thought that too, that like, why is this dude throwing himself back into the old mix of things that, like, you don't just jump right back in.
Well, and I brought, there was a dude there that was like a chaperone.
Yes. I remember that.
And he wasn't my sponsor or nothing like that. And then when I told my sponsor what I did, he fucking was pissed at me. He was like, dude, I didn't bring you through any of the things that you need to go through before you talk to those dudes. Like, what are you doing? You can't go and do that. Like, because you're not ready. And like, I said that to Glenn on the phone, and Glenn we had a misunderstanding, and he kind of interpreted it as my sponsor not like thinking that those guys were a bad influence on me, which was not the case.
Right.
It had to do with me.
I could see that. They're like, oh, your sponsor said don't talk to us.
Right.
Like that type of thing.
And Glenn said to me, who the fuck is that guy? Like, what the hell? You're not going to talk to us because that dude said that? Like, and like, I was like, no, it has to do with me. Like, that I don't know how to do the things that I need to do to make this right with you guys. And so, like, it was the bad situation that I was in turned worse. And so my grandfather passed away in 2014.
Okay.
So there's just no. Now I'm rebuilding my life in Connecticut. I met an incredible woman, and we moved in together. And being in a hardcore band and like playing shows was not on my radar. I was working on my program. I was going to meetings every night, 5 nights a week. I was working my job. I was like getting a semblance of normality back into a life that was chaos. And my grandfather passed away, and I was at the wake, and Glenn showed up. And Glenn came in the wake because he's, Glenn was a part of my family. All of these dudes are parts of my family, but Glenn, was at my house every day after school since we were 14,
Right.
So he's friends with my whole family. So he showed up there, and I had gone through and done the things that I needed to do, and I didn't know he was going to be there. And he went and he paid his respects. And I said to him, come outside, we got to talk. And so he said to me, he goes, you sure this is the time and the place to do that? And I said, no, I don't. But this is the time and the place that I have. So I'm going to take the opportunity. We walked down front of the funeral home, and there was a gazebo because it was snowing a bit and raining. And we started to talk. And he's like, why didn't you ever reach out to any of us? And I was like, yo, you told me, like, fuck you. Like, don't call me no more. Fuck you. So I didn't call you no more. He goes, I've known you fucking 20-something years. I can't tell you to fuck off. And then we kind of chuckled and we talked. And then we started talking, me and Glenn.
Right.
Now, Muttley was going to be a bear. I knew that this was going to be a hard sell. Muttley was,
because our issues were going on for a lot longer,
and they were way deeper, right? So I knew that this was going to be something that I had to do. Well, and another thing that pissed these guys off, and I could tell, well, I know because it would have pissed me off, was that I'm very vocal on social media, and these guys are like, this guy's all over fucking Facebook, but he can't call me. He's saying this, he's saying that, he's doing this, he's cracking this joke, but nobody can call, he can't call nobody. And I understand that, and and I'm not here trying to make any excuses for my behavior. When you're an addict, you're selfish, and it takes time once you leave the drugs behind to learn how to be a normal human again, or someone that's respectable at least.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will say this too. One of the things that pissed us off was that you were still Malone BCS, and it's like, no, you're not,
nigga. I mean,
like that's how we all felt. Like, it's like, yo, dude, you bounced. Like BCS was here, you bounced.
That never even crossed my mind, but I don't know.
What, that you had bounced?
No, that like the end tag of my Instagram name pissed people off.
Well, because Instagram didn't really start until after we had stopped.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that he created that, like we were just like, yo, isn't that fucking weird? Like, and part of that also was that there were other issues within the band that involved like, I won't get deep into it, but it basically involved certain other member of the band liking to talk about being in the band and not doing the work when we were still doing things. So we had some frustrations with that. And then here was another dude who, in our interpretation, bounced on the rest of us and like still wants to say he's Malone BCS.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, because we played without you. That's how we looked at it. Like, who's in the band, who's not? Like, not that we're even a band anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, that's how we looked at it, and it was just another thing that pissed us off. It's like, oh, you want to tell everybody about how you're in the band, but you're not in the band. There is no band.
So, Glenn and I start like talking, and like one thing that I had said is that like, I learned how to make a proper amends and to do what I'm supposed to do, and like to keep my side of the street clean and shit. And I said, look, I'm gonna say my piece, and I'll apologize, and I'll take responsibility for the things that I've done, and I will fully, whatever you want me to do to make amends, I'll do. But like, I could sit up here and talk for days, but I could like show you better than I can tell you, and like we can try to do it, and I'll just show you who I am and how I've changed. Like, I could sit here and gab, but like, you guys have listened to me talk for a long time. And he agreed. And I still did not talk about the band or getting the band back together or anything like that. Glenn and I were just like, talking as friends and shit. And he said to me, yo, do you want to play? And I was like, well, yeah, he's like, even see if like you could play sober, because Len, I never played sober.
Never played. That was going to be one of my questions. I have a couple questions that I have to ask you, but that was going to be one. But I'm not ready to ask them yet. But that was going to be one of my questions: is how do you balance playing sober when the whole time you had been doing the band you were not?
Well, it was certainly the whole time that I was in the band, which was one of the weird revelations. Like when we talked. Yeah,
but I mean, he said he's been smoking weed and drinking since he was 14, 16.
Well,
so even then, you're not playing fully clean.
That's true, but
I never played fully clean.
I was doing the same things from early on, but it was more just the idea of like, this dude had this problem for as long as I've been in the band.
Mm-hmm.
So when he told me that, when we had spoken earlier, when I was working in Westchester, that was a mind blower for me, because it's like, okay, this dude has had this pill problem for as long as I've been playing with him, which was really fucking weird to me.
So, Glenn's like, can you even play sober? I was like, well, I've been playing, like I could play. I had like gone out and I bought a guitar, and, I had the M80, and I had been playing. And so
I have to point out, by the way, that it's crazy that the M80 is the thing you did not pawn.
Yeah, that's the one thing you didn't pawn, huh?
Yeah. Because that's the fucking secret weapon.
Well, right. I knew I could plug like pretty much any Gibson through that motherfucker, but like I've never heard an M80 sound like that one.
We had this conversation literally last week.
Yeah, we had this conversation with Matt from Iron Price last week because we were talking a lot about gear and amps and stuff like that. And I was talking about your M80 and how it's like the holy grail, the same way Kerry King's is.
Yeah.
The way his JCM is.
Yep.
Because I went out and bought an M80 because I thought, oh well, all the M80s sound like this motherfucker, and I plugged it in. And I was like, yo, this thing sounds like trash.
Yeah, we were talking about that. It's just that one M80. There's just something about it.
Yeah, it's that M80 in this part of my hand.
Yeah,
it's like so. I went down, and this was in secret. Glenn was like, I can't tell Muttley that like I'm playing with you. It's like a big secret.
He could tell me, but I'll be salty as fuck about it.
Right. So I went down there, and I mean, we ripped through like 3 songs, and he was like, all right, like you sound pretty good. And it was the first time I had played with anyone. And so the end result is that, I mean,
were you nervous?
Oh yeah, of course. You do sound, you've done our sound. I mean, I'm a better guitar player now than I was then. I'm a better guitar player sober than I was fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
The guitar feels different. And I can remember the songs, sometimes. But like, so we did that. And then Glenn was like, all right, we got to have a meeting. And I was like,
I don't know if I'm ready for all that.
And
wait, you want me to talk?
So we went and we had a meeting at Glenn's house in November of 2014.
Okay.
And it was only to become friends again. It had nothing to do with the band. It was only strictly so that like we could all sit around a table and they could like get their shit out. And I could take responsibility for what I've done, and we could start to talk again.
Well, I will say this. It was talked about to me with the idea of maybe doing something for the anniversary, but nothing beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Martin, the whole time, was hounding me to get the band back together.
Well, Martin was hounding that whole time that we weren't communicating with you. Martin was hounding us
to keep going,
to do something. Well, I mean, it's no secret. At one point, there was a benefit show for Martin because he had some issues, and Gutter, I think, had helped him book a benefit show, and Martin was like, "Yo, can you guys talk to Malone?" And we were like, "No, we're not doing that. Like, we're not."
It would have been wrong for you to try to force him to try and play.
Well, that was the point. It was, and that's illustrated by the way we were approaching this thing, where we were looking at it as we can't put a time limit on it. The offer was there to do the Black and Blue thing, and like that was kind of mentioned, but it wasn't a motivating factor. It was like, well, if we do this, maybe we'll do that.
Right.
So now I have to say this. People would arbitrarily hit my DMs and be like, yo, how are you doing? What's going on? Is Billy Club getting back together?
Yeah.
And it happened to every single one of those guys.
And yeah, people would do the same thing with us.
And
I had long conversations with people, and my attitude was always the same. I said, I don't see it happening, but I'll never say never.
Now, Cousin Joe hit me up and said, yo, EGH just played Black and Blue. What's it going to take to get you guys to play Black and Blue next year? I said, and my exact reply to him was, I don't know. We'd probably have to start talking first. Because I hadn't talked to Glenn yet at this point.
Right.
And he said to me, his exact words were, "Did you kill anybody?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Then you could fix it." And it kind of took somebody involved in the scene to minimize kind of the conflict for me. He goes, "You didn't kill anybody. You didn't do anything to their families. You didn't do anything that's not unforgivable." And he's like, "You did fucked up shit. That's true. But you didn't do anything that's not unforgivable." And that kind of changed my way of thinking, along with, going through all of the things that I needed to go through. Now, we started talking again. And I told Muttley and Martin the same thing I told Glenn. I said, "I can't really tell you. I could show you how I've changed. And if you could avail me that opportunity, I would be just forever indebted." Because I knew I fucked up, but I also knew that I don't think that I could go the rest of my life without having these guys in it.
Right.
So, and I guess here's the part of the conversation where I really do have to say that I'm very, very grateful to the guys in Billy Club for having an open mind, allowing me back into their lives, giving me a chance. They didn't have to. I know plenty of these stories, Len. You know them too. It doesn't happen.
Right. For whatever reason, people just can't let it go and move forward.
Right. So, I 100%. One of the fucked up. So I'll say this too. One of the fucked up parts about recovery is that your program is a selfish program. And I had to learn that, but I had to learn how to get past that portion of it to get to a point where I could accept my responsibilities. I could see, I could let go of, I had to learn things like whatever resentments I had towards them actually were my fault. And, those were things that I had to learn before I could because I was still an egotistical prick, and I had to learn to let go of ego and a lot of things that just wasn't happening in 2012. I wasn't evolved enough. So, and to their credit, they never, ever, ever, ever gave up on me.
But I mean, that's what real friends are about. It's not giving up. Taking a step back is one thing, but not giving up is a totally different one. Right.
I mean, Muttley taking a step back and being pissed at me for valid reasons is different than him saying,
"Fuck you, I'm never talking to you again."
And we're never getting the band back together. Because I've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I never said that because, and don't get me wrong, I'm known to be a grudge holding motherfucker. That's known. There's people from years ago that I've had issues with that I still don't fucking like, and they know it. So I'm not one to mince words, and I'm not one to I'm pretty easygoing, but once you reach that level with me, I'm not giving people passes. You know what I'm saying? So it took some work. I'm not gonna lie, it took some work on Malone's part, because I was open to it, but I wasn't really trying to give him any breaks.
Well, one of the things you got to remember, and I mean, it's cliche to say it, but anything that's easy is probably not worth it.
It's true,
so if he was just going to if Muttley was just going to roll over and just make it totally easy on you, then that means he either didn't care that much, or you hadn't fucked up nearly as bad as you thought you did. And neither of them were the case, so it makes sense that it was going to be a tough road.
That's one of the things with me too, is that if you're in my inner circle, I hold you to a different standard.
As you should. I mean,
yeah, because I don't get that tight. Like, I know a lot of people, but I don't get really tight with a lot of people. So if we're tight, I mean, I'll go all out for you, but don't fuck me. And it just got to the point where I felt like I was being disrespected, and all of these things were happening, and it was just, it became a big, huge mess. And I firmly felt like I was trying to handle things the right way the full time. Like I said, from early on, I'm like, yo, dude, you ain't right. Like, what's going on? Like, I wasn't like, you're a fucking asshole. Fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I felt like I handled things the best I could, and I wasn't at fault. So, you know, you're going to have to do some work to prove to me that you're not the way you were.
Right.
Straight up.
So you guys had that conversation. The idea of playing Black and Blue was sort of floating out there. How long did it take you to all get in the room together for the first time after having that conversation?
Well, put it this way. We had that meeting at Glenn's house, and then there was a lot of conversation between the two of us via email back and forth for a while. There were a lot of things that had to be said. There were a lot of things that needed to be addressed. I needed to get a lot of shit off my chest. And one of the things that I had in my head was, if this dude starts coming with the excuses, yeah, you know, it's not really going to go very far. Like, it's not the time for excuses. And in all fairness, there were no excuses. He copped to everything. If there were things we disagreed upon, he stated his case, but he made no excuses. He accepted responsibility for a lot of things, and that was what needed to happen in my mind at first for this to go anywhere. And then from there, we talked out a bunch of other shit, and things started to rebuild from there. And then, God, I don't know, when did we... Well, it was after we had that meeting.
It was in February, I think.
It was after we had that meeting that Glenn copped to the fact that they had gotten together. And I was just like,
oh,
all right,
I see what's going on here.
It's a good thing we're getting along, because otherwise I'd probably be mad at you right now.
I think it was in February, right? January or February?
I don't remember, honestly. It could have been either one. I know Black and Blue was in May, so we kind of had... it probably was January, because it wasn't until after a practice or two that we really decided to commit to the show.
And then I got laid off from work and I remember, like, maybe the week or two after I got laid off, we went down and did Black and Blue Radio to announce we were going to play Black and Blue.
Right.
And it was still cold out.
Yeah. I don't remember the date on that. I probably have it somewhere, because I still have, I think, the radio show saved somewhere. But that was a big thing too, because once we decided and we committed that we were going to do it, the next thing that we did was go on Black and Blue Radio and announce it, and we were like, shit, we're actually doing this thing.
So at that point, it had been, what, 5 years since you had played?
6 years.
6 years?
Because that was 2016. The last show we played It was in July of 2010.
Okay. So
And
6
that
years
was
away, getting yourself together. The nerves were at a high. Taking the stage clean at such a big show. Did you play any warm-up shows? Did you sneak a fake one in?
We did.
We did. We snuck a fake one in Jersey at the end of a No Redeeming set. A week or two before Black and Blue.
Yeah, it was one of Gutter's shows at Hartley's.
Okay.
And since No Redeeming was playing, we talked about it, and we were like, just to get the rust off a little bit.
I also have to say that I love the guys in No Redeeming Social Value, and they played a huge part in just, I think, we share a drummer, but I think we're just, both bands are huge fans of each other.
Well,
and
I'll say this, and I may have mentioned it before on this podcast. When I started going to hardcore shows, No Redeeming was the first band that I became personal friends with. I met those guys probably at Bond Street and started talking to them. And back then it was Mike and Dean and Kent and Vinny. I don't remember who was playing bass. That was the only one I didn't really hang out with. And then Scott came later. But from early on, like, the No Redeeming guys were the first band that I really became personal friends with when I started going to hardcore shows. And that friendship has lasted all this time. Like, I've been good friends with those dudes for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good dudes. And when we played the Gregg show, we were using their gear. They let us use their gear. And we've played with them many times, and I've helped them out as like guitar tech many times. I know Kent loves that. Says I'm the best roadie ever, which is fucking funny.
Now, to answer your question about the Black and Blue Bowl, I gotta be honest with you, I wasn't that nervous, dude.
Good.
I feel like maybe, I'm not really good at many things, but like playing guitar in Billy Club is one of them. And I had my sponsor was there. Kate was there, who was my girlfriend for almost 8 years. She was on stage with me. Uh-huh. I had the full support of Billy Club. They I was on stage with the guys that I'm supposed to be on stage with. A bunch of my other sober friends were there. All of IDS was there. I felt good. I didn't feel... I think I was more nervous the first day I went in the studio with Glenn.
Okay.
That time. It felt good, and it felt right, and I don't know, I think we smashed it.
I was totally comfortable. If I had any reservations about it, I wouldn't have done it. I don't get nervous for shows in general, but if at any point when we were practicing, if I felt like things weren't right, we would have addressed it. And if I felt like Malone wasn't up to it, I think we all would have made that evaluation right away.
Way ahead of time.
Yeah, because I always take it seriously. Like, I'm not ever trying to step on stage and come off whack. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, on me either. I mean, I have.
I have too.
But I'm not intending to set out that way.
Yeah. Sometimes things fall apart. So
the intention was to go out and just play this one show.
Yeah, that was it. We
had no plans beyond that.
We had absolutely no plans beyond the one show. We said, we'll do this. And we didn't say this is it. Like, we said we're going to do this and see what happens.
Right.
And then after that,
went well. And
it went
now,
great. And then
it's basically 5 years later now, and you guys are still playing when it makes sense.
Yeah, we had some offers after that, and we had some discussions after that, and we decided, okay, let's do a couple of these and see where it takes us. And then we started getting more offers to go do a fest down in Florida and do a fest in Chicago and do some other shows here and there. And we decided, let's go with it. And we were all comfortable with it and happy with it. And we kept going.
Let's see here. So you're back on playing occasionally, and it's basically been that same pattern now for 5 years, 6
Yep.
years. When things make sense, you do it. Monetarily, timing wise, personnel wise, all that stuff. If because again, none of us are doing this for money.
No.
We're doing it because we like to do it.
Well, and I think the other important factor is we do the things we want to do.
Right.
You know, like we want to go places. You know, we want to play. You know, we wanted to play FYA. We wanted to play the Rumble. You know, we wanted to play
Tsunami.
Tsunami.
This is hardcore.
This is hardcore. You know, those are things that, like, you know, we've always wanted to do. So, you know, and the timing and the stuff made sense, you know, and the kids wanted to see us, like, you know, now we're writing again, you know, and we got like 3 new songs, and like that's starting to take off again. And it's different, you know. Me and Muttley are trading riffs online, which we've never done. It was always just, let's get in a room and bang this out and work on stuff and see what comes out of it. And now it's like, I send him an idea, he adds some tails on it, sends it back to me, and we have a second part, and then we send it to Glenn, and, you know, like, but I mean,
are you guys writing to a click, or are you just literally just sending riffs?
Just sending riffs.
Okay.
A few times what we've done is he'll send me something and then I'll re-record it in GarageBand with
like some fake drums.
I'll record it with the click and then add some fake drums just to kind of spice it up and flesh it out a little more.
Yeah.
So we started doing that because it's hard now. We're spread out pretty far. Malone's up in Connecticut, like way up Connecticut by Hartford. I'm in the Bronx. Glenn's in Harlem. Martin's down in Jersey. So it's not easy for us to get together, especially now in the wintertime, because...
Well, there's a pandemic going on.
Well,
what? Wait, there's a pandemic going on? I had no idea.
That doesn't help.
You know.
But even without that, like in the wintertime, it's like he gets snow up there. He ain't coming down here.
Right.
Well, and like, for instance, we were supposed to practice, I don't remember, last month, and I had 2 cases of COVID in my office.
So you're like, yeah, I'm not coming.
I'm like, I'm not going to put you guys at risk, you know, like, I don't know if I have it, you know, like, so I'm not going to come down there, you know. So there's like things happening that are like, you know, shit that like you ain't never had to deal with before in your life, you know. And like, but I don't know, like, you know, this year, right, has been just crazy in so many ways. You got the pandemic. Kate and I broke up. I moved during a pandemic. I found a new place. I went through a breakup. I, like, you know, there's just a lot of shit going on in everybody's lives, you know, and like this shit, you know, is like, you know, I think a lot of people are like, oh, like, I can't wait till there's shows again. And I agree. I can't wait till there's shows again either. I had to go through all of those things without one of my biggest coping mechanisms, which is playing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my things. That's one of the things that keeps me even, is going out and playing.
Same here.
Right, and I think for people who play the type of music that we play, You know, I can deal with a lot of the anger issues that I have because I know that I'll pour it out into a set for 35 minutes and you know, it's a release unlike any other for other people. And I think that like people who suffer from like things like me, like anger issues or mental health issues, you know, that losing that is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and for kids who go to shows but don't play in bands, just going and beating the hell out of each other for 4 hours or 5 hours in the night gets them through whatever terrible home life they got going on, or whatever their fucking job shit is. And you know, we're all here and we're all going through this, and it's like, you know, I do miss shows because fuck, man, you know, like I don't get many releases, you know.
See, I've gone on record as saying that I don't care or miss shows, and it's not the show portion that I miss, or that I don't miss. Let me be clear. It's the bullshit around it.
Yeah.
So, I miss the music. I miss playing. I miss checking out bands. I miss even the occasional shaking of a leg, you know, occasional punching of a child, whatever needs to happen for me to feel better. But I don't miss all the other drama around being at a show.
You don't miss
Like-
the punishers.
Right. Like, I don't necessarily miss all the people. I miss some of the people. Like, I miss my actual friends.
Yeah.
But I still have contact with these people, and the people that are like most important to me, I still catch up with via message in some form somewhere. So I don't miss that piece as nearly as much as the physical music piece.
The physical music piece and like my hands playing things on a guitar
Yeah, that's what I mean. That whole thing.
that make people beat each other up, I miss bad.
One of the reasons why I haven't really been playing guitar over the course of this entire pandemic is that playing guitar alone in a room or to a click or to fake drums just doesn't give me the same feeling as playing in a room with friends, even if we're just hashing out songs or practicing shit we know, let alone going to play a show. So if you told me in 6 months this pandemic is over and everything is coming back online, I would be searching high and low for a situation in which I would be playing the guitar. But I don't want to give myself the dick tease right now of like really focusing on music when I'm not going to be able to go out and perform.
Yeah, you're not going to get that payoff.
Sure.
So
And I think-
I've just been like laying back.
Well, yeah, I feel you on that. And like, one of the problems that I have with the pandemic is that I was already an electronic addict,
Okay.
and now
It's even worse.
it's even worse. You know, and like, so like being in a room with those guys for 4 hours and banging songs out, even if we didn't have any shows lined up, got me out of this box. You know, and you know, because think about this, right? We talk about the program and we talk about shit like that. I've been talking about recovery. My meetings are on a screen.
Right.
I went to one in-person meeting that was outdoors at a bonfire where we all sat social distance, and it was just awesome.
So you're
I
still
wasn't
working the meetings. It's just it's just part of your life now.
Yeah, it's just part of my life. I mean, I don't go. I only do 1 or 2 a week, but I have to stay in that circle. I'll be there forever.
It's part of your coping.
Yeah, it's just who I am now, you know? Because I have to. I can't.
because that was going to be one of my questions, was how have you continued to stay sober in the face of things that may have derailed you in the past? Because like you mentioned that you broke up with Kate, and I feel like for being in a relationship with someone for 8 years or however long you guys were together, somewhere around that amount of time, that could have been a bad catalyst for you in the past.
So, so I have to stay in the center of the pack, right? So I have to be amongst people who I am accountable to.
Mm-hmm.
Because being in a program would ruin getting higher drinking for me. And what I mean by that is that before I got sober and before I was accountable to the people in the program and my sponsor and all of my buddies and whatnot, I had to answer to no one, and there was nothing to feel guilty over, really. It was just use and like you do whatever. But you know, the other thing is that like I know the things that bring me down, right? So like I can recognize the triggers that I have and how I feel in my core. And like if I feel a certain way, then I go out and seek out other sober people. So like I call people, I talk to people that are in the same boat as I am. And that's very important, because when you are, the phone can feel like it weighs 1,000 pounds, right? You know, but like you got to talk to the people that, you know, so I learned like maybe a long time ago that like when I do feel weird or like I'm getting weird, I call somebody. Now, if I feel weird, I go to a meeting.
Right.
You know, if I feel weird, I'll read the big book. Like I just, now I feel fortunate because the mental obsession was lifted for me a long time ago, where like, because I'll tell you right now, like we're having this discussion and I don't feel great. I feel good talking to you guys and I've had a blast tonight, but right now is the first Christmas I'm going to be without Kate in 8 years. She's the love of my life. I love her to death. We can't be together, and that's just the way that it is, and that's something that I have to deal with. I am alone most of the time unless I'm at work. I work in a job where I see between 100 and 150 people a day, and I don't want to put my friends at risk if I get COVID. My family and friends live far away from me. And we're in the middle of this pandemic, and I don't have my release. So I don't feel great. You know, I don't feel 100%. I'm kind of depressed. And it's okay. I could be depressed. I can't allow myself to fall victim to, my triggers and then spiral.
Right.
So, like, not for nothing, but, like, I was super looking forward to tonight. We had a couple of missed opportunities where I was supposed to be on and I couldn't do it. And then I was going through a whole load of shit with COVID at my job. And there was, like, a whole bunch of shit. But, like, this is something that, like, have the opportunity to talk about recovery, talk about addiction, talk to two people who I consider really good friends of mine, talk about Billy Club. So like, there are things that I do because that's what I know how to do. And when you stop doing them is when, you're in trouble.
Okay.
So I just stay consistent and do the things that I know work.
So tell me who the new Tony is. Because since you've been back on board, you live in Connecticut, and I don't see you unless we happen to be at the same show.
Yep.
So, like, what do you do now? Like, are you watching movies? Are you listening to music? Like, what are we doing?
Okay, so I have gotten back into cars.
Okay.
And I am currently now, my whole life I was kind of into cars. I'm not a mechanic, but I would like buy cars, do things to them, hook them up, and I've always been into like lowriders and stuff. And so that's another thing that I do is stay busy, right? So even though I'm alone a lot of the time, I either fuck up my guitar or I play video games or I like I do shit with my cars. And like right now I have 2 classic Chevys. I have an 87 Caprice Classic lowrider that car has got like 29,000 original miles on it. And I'm in the process of building an 84 Caprice Classic that is it's got a QA1 Stage 3 race suspension. It's got, a 96 Impala SS rear end, and it's got a 5.3 liter LS motor that I, ripped apart. I mean, the car's, when it's going to be done, it's almost, engine and drivetrain is almost done now. Then it's going to go for paint and interior. And then I'll probably debut the car next summer.
So, stupid car knowledge nerd shit. I love the fact that GM never really changed the layout of their chassis from basically like 78 through, I don't know, I guess it was like 2000.
Yep.
For all their big cars. So all the Caprices, all the full frames, cars, they're basically the same, and you can just yank parts from various places. If you can get the mating piece to work, it'll work.
So it's actually from 77 to 96.
Okay.
And then 97, 98, and 99 Impalas are the new breed of Impalas. But, like, you could take the rear end out of a 96 Impala and throw it... Well, you could probably even throw it into, like, a... Well, no, 75 is like a big...
That's the bigger ones.
That's like a glass house.
So, my first car was a 69 Le Mans with 350 in it.
Sure.
And, it was a sled.
Yeah.
And it was like huge, but in terms of 69, 70, it was like a medium sized car. It wasn't one of the big ones.
Yep.
But in terms of current cars, it was fucking huge.
Yep.
So I've been obsessed with cars my whole life. My grandfather was a mechanic. He was actually the first black master mechanic for the New Jersey State Police. He was the head foreman for the Trenton Post.
Wow.
So, I've been jumping under / digging in cars my whole life. I don't do it now just because I got 1,000 other things. But in my driveway, I have an 05 GTO with a 6.0, and I just bought a Challenge, not new Challenger. This is like a 2016 Shaker Challenger.
Yep.
I got it with 84 miles on it.
What?
Like months ago. I just been searching for the right car, and it's a 6-speed, had 84 miles on it. I've put like 1,200 miles on it. At this point, I could resell the car for more than I bought it for, because every couple months it gains more age, and then it's it smells brand new inside.
Wow.
So, like, I love cars. I had a 91 Firebird Formula. I had a GTP. I actually bought an Oldsmobile Aurora, a 96. It was one of the last ones on that old frame.
Yep.
Before they switched it. So, like, I've been all about cars. So I didn't realize you were that deep into them.
Oh, bro, like so I went through a phase where I built old Japanese cars. I had 81, 82, 1.8 liter rear wheel drive Toyotas, Corollas. I've had Cadillacs and fucking lowriders. I've had 86 Cutlass Cadillac, 79 Malibu. I'm more into...
I'm laughing about the station wagon that time.
Yeah, I had an 82 Malibu station wagon, dude. I had a 79 Malibu 4-door, but I had an 82 Malibu station wagon that was the cleanest car I think that I might have ever owned.
Okay.
And it was a Woody station wagon. It was an 82. It had a 267 V8 in it. It was a slug. But I bought it for the band, right?
Right.
So like I could haul equipment in it, because it was
that's why I have
Malibu,
my Mazda.
right? So it wasn't like the size of a Caprice wagon, but the motherfucker's big in terms of like today's cars, right? So like, but I'm more into 80s, because I was like those were my formative years. I was 10 and 85, you know, and
I was
as
10
much
and 86, so yeah.
Right. So like, as much as I love all year Impalas, I love full frame cars. So GMs, you know, B bodies, G bodies, A bodies, you know, full frame cars. I'm not into Camaros or Firebirds or shit like that.
I don't like into the Firebird, but
I'm not into subframe cars. Not to say that there's not select years of Camaros or Firebirds that I would own, because there is, right?
But you're not seeking them out,
right? So
my two dream cars is a 78 Trans Am with the Smoking and Bandit package, the Bandit package.
Yeah, 6.6 shaker hood. TA.
Shaker hood with the fucking flames.
Yep.
The flaming bird.
Yep.
And then my other dream car is an 87 Grand National.
Well, yeah, I mean that's like the elite. An 87 GNX or an 87 intercooled Grand National. You know, if they weren't 50 grand, I would own one.
Yeah, I saw a guy driving one around around not my neighborhood, but like out on the main street the other day, and I almost chased him down.
Yeah, you wouldn't catch him.
Well, I almost just followed him.
There you go. I'll send you pictures of what I've done to the 84.
Okay.
Because like you're gonna shit your pants when you see what I've done to this car, right? But I was thinking about selling the 87 and getting a coupe.
Okay.
Getting like a 78 or 79 Caprice Aero coupe, you know, with the bubble rear window.
I know those. I know.
But they're like big money. But I could like what you were saying is like, but like right now, box Chevys are like what's hot in the streets, and my car's worth like 10 grand as it sits with 29,000 original miles on it, and I haven't touched it. That car, I couldn't pass up because like I saw the mileage on it and what the guy wanted, and I had just bought the 84, and I was like, all right, here's 3,500. I'm taking this one too.
Right.
And then the only thing I did to it, I mean, I have the stock hubcaps and tires in there, but I threw 14x7, reverse 100 spoke wires on it.
Okay.
And that car's sitting in my garage right here because I live in a townhouse now. But I have no neighbors. It's just me, a garage, and then the other townhouse, and then like my garage. So like, because that was like one of the stipulations is that I'm doing a lot of shit with cars, and I was like, I need a garage.
Right. So, I mean, nobody wants to be working on a car in the fucking. That's part of my problem is I have a driveway that will fit 5 cars in it. Like, you can fit 5 motherfucking cars in the damn thing, but it's not covered at all.
Yeah.
So it's too cold to work out there in the winter. It's too hot in the summer. Got everybody watching you do everything. It's just not. It's not conducive to a good working relationship with your neighborhood.
Well, that and like you have salt on the roads and in the environment.
Oh, yeah.
And like I got a fucking brand new this townhouse got built in 2012. So like
It's basically brand new.
Yeah, I got like stainless steel fucking appliances, and the garage, like it's like another room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so clean, you know.
Right.
Like I don't think anybody ever kept a car in there.
Yeah, they probably just kept boxes in it.
Yep. So that's one of the things that I do. I'm active in recovery. So aside from like doing things that keep me sober, I don't like to talk about it a lot, but I do. I put myself out there to be a contact for people that want to try and get sober. And it helps me stay sober.
So I dated a girl who was a recovered addict or recovering. Everybody is continually recovering.
Yep.
So she had been clean for 6 years before I even met her. And she still goes to the meetings. She became a doctor in psychology and opened her own practice, but her practice was specific to helping people with addiction.
Yeah.
So I've heard that before, that helping other people get into the process and stay on track helped her to stay on track. So I'm not surprised to hear that you helped yourself stay on track by helping others.
It's sometimes hard, because you have to keep in mind that they might not stay sober.
Right.
But amazing things have happened. I've had people reach out to me that are a part of the scene that, are still sober today. And that is, that's amazing to me, because, when you say things like that's what a real friend does, that's what a real friend does, and like, and like, I think a lot of people maybe are misunderstood about some things. Like, you don't have to be sober to help someone get sober or stay sober, or like you're doing things every day that are helping people. And like, one thing that I found is like a lot of people were saying things like, oh, you're never going to be able to go back into that scene. Like too many people get fucked up, or too many people, like, there's alcohol readily available everywhere. But
I mean, there's alcohol readily available everywhere.
It's never more than an arm's length away from you if you want it to be.
Right.
Right? So, like,
I mean, you could go to a regular restaurant and find it. You could walk to the corner and find it.
There's a package store less than a block from my house. I drive past it every single day on my way home. There's a package store 3 stores down from my job. I've never been inside of it. But like, what I've found, so I'll tell a quick story real fast. So, Thorns? You know who he is?
Yeah.
Thorns? Yeah. We played FYA Fest. And we went out afterwards, right? And everybody's like, yeah, we're going to go to this bar and hang out. So we went there, and people were like ordering food, and And Thorns came over to me and he was like, yo, I know your situation. Like, you want some like wings or tater tots and like a ginger ale? And like, that's the kind of scene that we belong to. Right?
Right.
You know, like, not one person has been disrespectful to me and been like, yo, you wanna smoke or you want a beer? Everybody in our scene knows my situation. I'm not anonymous, and they support me.
Right.
You know, so to that end, when I have friends like these guys, I don't know, like, staying sober is easier. You know, these guys look out for me like crazy. Like, I was feeling a little froggy in that bar down in Tampa, in Ybor City, and I got up from the table and I walked outside. I didn't really know what I was gonna do, and Martin came outside and he was like, "Yo, where are you going?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just wasn't feeling the vibe in there." I was like, "I'm gonna go get something to eat." He was like, "I'm coming with you."
Easy does it.
Easy does it. Like, you know, that's another thing too, is that like, I'll leave a situation if I don't feel right. I'll just leave.
It's always easiest to take yourself out of a situation. I mean, honestly, that's how clearly, I've never had an addiction issue, but I know that I have an addictive personality. Mm-hmm. So I will pull myself out of any situation that makes me feel uncomfortable. Just like that.
I mean, that should be your MO with anything in life, right?
I agree.
Like, you don't feel comfortable at whatever, like, leave.
I leave. I just leave. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Just go home. Or go somewhere else. Then you don't even have to go home. Just go somewhere else.
So, me and Martin left, and we went down to a pizza joint, right? And I walk in the pizza joint. I don't know, like 5 minutes later, there's two broads dancing on the tables.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Me and Martin drank ginger ales and ate slices of pizza, and the pizza wasn't bad for Ybor City. You know,
man.
But you know what it is too in the scene? I think at this point, especially at our age, how many people do we know that lost that battle?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how many dudes have, and women too, how many people have we lost?
Too
so
many
people understand that. And because I could say I've been offered all kinds of substances that I don't fuck with, and nobody has ever pressured me in any way. Like, no, okay, cool.
More for me.
Yeah.
But you know, like I never felt that way.
Never in the hardcore scene.
Right.
Never is anybody, oh, come on, try it just a little bit. No, never.
I think people have a bad idea about what the hardcore scene is about. They force the idea of metal and rock and roll onto something that is not necessarily the same thing, while still sharing some attributes when it comes to the sound.
I agree.
It's a different location. You're playing a different game. Mm-hmm. It may look the same, but it is different.
And that's why bands that maybe don't necessarily sound hardcore are in our scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because they fit in better with us than they do
elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, you have to think about all the bands that were definitely not hardcore bands in that range from 97 through 03. One of my old bands fits that mold. We were not a hardcore band by any regular standard of what a hardcore band is, but the ethic of the band fit it.
Right.
So it's more about your ethics than it is about your sound.
I've always said that because hardcore to me has always been more of like a lifestyle and a mentality than an actual style of music, because a lot of it is a mix of punk and metal, and a lot of it tends to be more metal lately.
But I mean, lately is probably 25 years.
Right, but you could take two bands and play them, and they both sound like metal bands, but one of them will be a hardcore band because they are in the hardcore scene.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like Irate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Irate had some of the greatest breakdowns of that era ever, maybe. But Irate is a metal band that is, was in the hardcore scene. You know what I mean? Like, they just fit in with us a lot better.
Yeah.
Right.
So my last question I had for you regarding your recovery is, do you have any lasting effects from the abuse that you put yourself through?
Yeah.
Because I want to frame this as not necessarily a warning, but just like a, hey, this could happen. If somebody is listening to this show and they haven't necessarily gone that extra step to really dig in deep, what could they be looking at in the future?
Well, so my nose is fucked up. Okay. I did a lot of damage to my nose, my nasal cavities, and I can't breathe fully out of my nostrils at any time. They're pretty much like, it's always
pressure.
Yeah, it's always pressure and, swollen, or I just did a lot of damage to them. Now, the brain, this is something that just say it's a cautionary tale, but it's something that if people are maybe worried about that, or they are in active addiction or something, I thought that I would never be able to laugh again, because I damaged my, the dopamine receptors and pathways pretty badly. And serotonin isn't something that you just stop producing dopamine because you're inundating your body with dopamine.
Right. You under siege?
Well, no, I heard something, but I'm always ready to go.
At the ready.
So, but anyway, so
Man.
I mean, they would have to be fucking nuts to come in here, bro. Let me tell you something. But anyway, the brain is incredibly resilient, and these guys could tell you. I used to be talk to them, and I would just stop talking, and there was fucking holes in my brain, and I couldn't process shit. But my brain healed, and it's
found new pathways.
Yeah, but it took a while, but it's I could laugh like I never laughed before in my life, and I could experience joy, because dopamine and serotonin is not just readily available when you've been a hardcore opiate addict for 11 years,
Right.
But it's really an amazing organ, the brain. And I think that I have some residual kidney issues from all the pills. I had battled kidney stones on and off for a couple of years now, and I just don't know that my kidneys are processing shit. Now, when I've gone to the doctor and I've had checkups, My liver function is fine and my kidney function is fine, but I have had some issues with that too.
But otherwise, you're good?
Yeah, otherwise I'm good. I mean, I am diabetic, but that has more to do with me being a fat ass than it had to do with...
Hey, I know all about being a fat ass, my man.
So...
Came to the right place.
Yeah, but, I don't... Nothing too crazy, but, there are some residuals. I know other people that are a lot worse off than me, though.
Yeah, I mean, every body is different. Everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
So, and, some people do better in the recovery than others. But it is what it is.
Yeah, all I could say about recovery is that I am extremely grateful and I'm extremely lucky. I mean, I didn't really get into any of the war stories, but I OD'd a bunch of times, and, I would wake up not being able to breathe. And when you're an opiate addict, what happens is that it suppresses your ability to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So your respiratory system fails is how you overdose and die. Basically, you become so sedated that your body stops breathing.
Right.
And I woke up every time.
As your friend, I'm glad that you woke up every time, but I'm more glad that you got to the point where you felt like you were at bottom and you needed to make that change, and you went through with it and stuck with it. Because a lot of people try and fail, and then when they fail, they give up. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you did not give up.
Thank you.
Because otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with us.
Yeah, March 24th, I'll have 9 years. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, right?
Hey, March 24th is coming fast.
Yeah, it is. I feel like it was just March 24th when I went into lockdown.
I've been sitting in this fucking basement since then.
It feels like March 24th was just yesterday because that's the last time I left my fucking house.
So, March 23rd was the day that we went home and I started working from home.
Yeah, March 9th, they closed. I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if it was before we were really on air, but March 9th, my office closed. And by March 20-something, I had cleaned my old studio office up and moved in, and I've been in this basic desk spot almost every day in a basement with no windows and only 2 lights, just hashing it out, doing edits, mixes, working for my 9 to 5, doing this podcast with Gary, and watching TV on this TV over here to my left. And literally, I've spent my entire year stuck in this windowless basement.
Man,
I'm ready to be out of here, but this is my safe zone.
Yep.
There's nobody down here. The rest of the people that live in my house are upstairs. I don't have to deal with anything. The ceiling is 2 sets of 5/8 inch sheetrock with insulation stuck in it, so all I hear is footsteps, no voices.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody gets a top 5 question or a hot take. Do you want a hot take or do you want to give us a top 5?
Top 5.
What's your top 5 hardcore records of all time?
Just Can't Hate Enough, The Burn 7-inch. Fucking Murphy's Law, Back with a Bong. Blood, Sweat, and No Tears. And probably Desperate Measures.
Okay. So Blood, Sweat, and No Tears is one of my top 5 hardcore records for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think it's one of the most perfect hardcore records that's ever come out.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
Like, the recording is just good enough where it sounds good, but it doesn't sound polished at all.
Right, but it's still punchy.
But they were tight. They played well. The lyrics were on point straight through. It's just a fun listen. So I fucking love that record.
And it's a vibe. That record.
It's definitely a vibe.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Huh. I never even thought about my top 5 hardcore records before that
It's okay
question.
if it changes.
I mean,
the next time we talk to you, if you tell us a whole different 5.
They came off the head quick.
Yeah.
Well, I know that for definitely Just Can't Hate Enough and the Burn 7-inch changed my life.
I wouldn't be able to pop off a list that quick.
And I know that if
I'll give you hot takes quick because I'm a hater, but you want to talk top 5, like I have to think about that.
I didn't take no hot takes because I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings.
Hey.
Well, you're in the wrong place. we be spitting out them hot takes.
Like, the other thing is, like, Blood, Sweat, and No Tears. If someone was going to ask me, like, what is New York hardcore?
It's that record.
Give me a record to listen to, and I would give him that record. And I also just happen to love that record. You know?
Great record.
Sure.
See, I found out about Sick of It All around around Just Look Around.
I mean,
so
yeah.
I didn't find them on Blood, Sweat, and No Tears.
Mm-hmm.
But I did crawl backwards after I found out about it.
Yeah. Well, I did the same. Just Look Around was when I first really discovered them. But I'm also glad you had Desperate Measures on that list.
Oh, I love that record.
One of my favorites of all time.
I love that record. And it's like way more polished, but it's just so sick.
It is so good. There's so much good shit on that record. And so many crazy fucking breakdowns on that record.
And I love Murphy's Law. Like, I don't know if anybody, but there was a time where, like, I was the Jägermeister man. Like,
I remember hearing the story about Yonkers.
Yeah, when that wasn't the only time I did that, but, like, there was, several times.
I heard about it. I never witnessed that because, I mean, Poughkeepsie Martin was the Jägermeister man, but that's another story.
But you did witness it when they played. So not when they played.
Oh wait, at the Haunt.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's all those pictures of me, like.
Yeah. Well, there's pictures of me and somebody. I forget who it was. Me and somebody. I don't think it was you, but I could be wrong. Putting ethnic through a table. I mean, it's a Murphy's Law show. You know how we roll.
It's me, you, and somebody putting ethnic through a table.
I can't remember now. It wasn't Martin. I don't know. I have those pictures somewhere, I'm sure.
Well, I guess we got to wrap this up soon, huh? Look at Len. Len's like, yeah.
I got a 9:00 meeting I gotta be at. So
I gotta be at work at 9.
I gotta be at work at 8:30.
Oh.
I mean, my job is like 30 steps down the stairs, but I still got to be here.
Yeah, I actually have to go to the office.
Well, all right. Let's be clear. My son will be up at 6:30.
Well,
he will be waking me up at 6:30.
Let's be clear. At 9:05 a.m., I'm probably gonna be getting chewed out by a fucking 5'2", 70-year-old woman who doesn't have the right fucking marriage certificate. So, you guys enjoy your day.
For me, it'll be, Dad, I can't get this Lego apart. Can you help me? At 6:30, I'm like, dude, I can't even see right now. What are you talking about? You're asking me to dig around on a Lego?
That's the only marriage certificate I've ever had. That doesn't
I don't know
make
what
it
to tell you,
right,
lady.
So,
Yeah, see, luckily I don't have to deal with customers tomorrow, so one less head.
Thank you guys very much for having me on. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming on, because I know since we started this podcast, you and I have talked about doing this. So I'm glad we finally were able to have this conversation. And I hope, as I said from the beginning, I really hope that if there are people out there who are dealing with it from either side, from the side of being the addict or from the other side of having to deal with someone
who is an addict. Our intention was really just to open up this whole discussion and kind of illustrate things from both sides, and hopefully that'll help you get a better perspective on whatever situation you've got going on. Hell yeah.
And I'm glad that things have worked out the way they have, and you and I now are better friends, and I'm glad we didn't throw hands in Amsterdam.
Me too.
Because, I mean, how could you throw hands in Amsterdam?
You know?
It's not right.
All I had to say is, this summer, both of y'all have to come down, and I'll smoke a whole bunch of shit in my smoker, and we'll just sit in the backyard.
There you go.
And shoot the shit.
Yep.
Also, I need to see the studio, man.
Yeah, come down.
All right.
Yeah, we'll go make some noise in the studio.
There you go.
Bring that hater Glenn.
Yo, hater. Let's go. We're going on a road trip, hater.
Hater.
Yo, honestly, I see Glenn more, well, at least when shows were happening, I saw Glenn more often than either one of you, because he was always at Champs for some random like ska band playing, and I mean, it's gone on record a number of times. I love ska, and so does Glenn. And I would see him there. So he knows the way down here.
You guys are the two occupants of that island.
There you go.
and I'll be waving to you from shore.
That's fine.
All right.
I will definitely not be on that island. Malone, you want to shout out any social media? Anything like that?
Shout out any social media?
I don't know. You want people to reach out to you and say hi? And
I mean, hey, if you know me and you're struggling with addiction, or you know somebody that is, hit me up. I'm always on fucking Facebook. Ask Motley.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh, you're one of those Twitter people.
Yeah, but I only lurk. I don't really like to post there.
Yeah, that's all I do is lurk on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't have a real Twitter. I actually don't even have my real name on my Twitter. I have a fake Twitter.
Twitter's savage, yo.
Twitter is a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
And I just watch from the outside.
Yeah,
there you go.
You're better off. All right. TheUpgradePodcast.net for all of our links. And I keep forgetting to make that graphic that we're on Pandora now. One of these days I'll actually get it done. But yes, we're on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Real Media Player,
MySpace, Friendster, MeWe, all those places.
MeWe.
Parlor.
Yeah, we're on Parlor.
Yo, we should start a Parlor. We should start a Parlor.
Yo,
we'll have thousands
canceled.
of listeners.
Shh. You're gonna get us canceled.
There you go.
We're just joking. We are not on Parlor.
We are definitely not on Parlor.
Ooh, man. We might have lost a bunch of fans just now.
Oh, no.
Shit.
We'll pick up Trap's one fan.
They have one fan? Oh,
one
well,
fan.
They do have family.
Well, she has a trap tattoo anyway.
Oh. Yeah, she lost a bet.
Yeah. It's a trap stamp.
It's a trapped
Stamp.
It's got Admiral Akbar.
It's a tramp.
It's a trapped. All right. Thanks again. for coming on, Malone, and thank you guys for listening to this marathon monster of a podcast because we don't shut up.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care, man.
All right,
Thanks
later.
for listening. Talk to you guys soon.
Later.
Later.
Later.